Um, Today I'd like to quickly finish up what we did last time, just a short blurb on videos, and then I'm going to do webcams. Okay, so let me just do a quick program here. I'm not going to write the whole program, but I'll show you the basics of it so you'll see what the principle is. Suppose you have a video running down in the body. You set up this video. I'll set it up the way it looks. Really long line, got a lot of stuff in it. But when you set up your video on the screen, I gave it an ID because I'm gonna do something with it. So I did give it an ID this time. You say where's the video come from? What's the movie that you're playing? And then you have to do the position absolute. If you want to place your screen someplace and you want to change the size, you have to tell it the width of the screen, the height, where the left is, the top is, and then you want to tell it to autoplay, start playing when the thing begins. You want to tell it to loop, and you want to close it. This is just, you don't have to do any particular one of these things, except to get the video. You do have to have that. You do have to have this right here, and you do have to have that too. And you don't have to position it; it'll just automatically fly sometimes. It's crazy.
One thing I was curious about is, how there's the position absolute? Are there any shortcuts for that, like position, center, or
I'm gonna do that right now.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the shortcuts in HTML?
Like, is it just even for placing like the video on the screen? Is there a way to just make it like center in the screen without doing all the position absolute jargon? Because it's just extra coding to put in.
Well, here's my question. Are you saying can we do it in HTML or not? We can do it in JavaScript.
I mean in HTML without...
I don't know if you can change things in HTML. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if they have a way of doing it. If there is, it's some awkward, inconvenient, as usual way that they throw anything. But computer languages are all alike. HTML is a weirdo. All the computer languages. So if you learn it in JavaScript, you'll know it in Java. You'll know it in every language. And the thing is that it won't be exactly the same, but at least you'll see the logic is always the same. These guys, I mean, this is a historical problem. It was the first, HTML was the first of the online languages.
Right.
And they didn't know what they were doing. They basically did their best. They did well too, but they didn't know what was going to happen in the future, so they didn't anticipate even having videos. They didn't anticipate even having pictures when they first started.
Being able to embed it.
So they kept adding things to it, trying to make it work. That video, that thing right there is very new. That's not a real thing. So all these things kind of grew a topsy. But JavaScript came after the did most of it, and they kind of knew what they were trying to accomplish, so they figured out how to do it. In the end, JavaScript really does work in HTML. It goes to HTML and tells it what to do. But that's way behind the scenes, beyond what we actually deal with. Anyway, to make a long story short, this is down the body right here. And this right here will produce your image. If you do, your image is going to be there. It's going to be right where you tell it. It's going to be showing you things. That's all there is to it. But supposing you wanted to do a number of funny things. You wanted to move the screen around, the image around, or you wanted to make it bigger or smaller. You can actually do those things. You can control those things because we gave it a width, a height, a left, and a top. We gave it those things, okay? And there's some other things we didn't give it, which are, they're built into it that you can't see, but they're sort of implicit. And one of them is its rotation. It has a rotation of 0 in all the axes right now, but it does have a rotation. The picture already automatically has a variable for rotation, rotating this way in all different directions. But it's just that they don't show it, and you don't need it because, again, it's behind the scenes, it's built in. But we can get to that. I'll show you how to deal with that, because it comes in handy with some things we want to do. So anyway, let's say that you have this thing here, and you simply want to put some buttons up there so that you can press the button, a normal button. Then what it'll do is it'll make the screen get bigger, or the screen get smaller, okay? Let's just make it bigger just to show you what that would kind of look like. Well, first of all, if you want to make the picture bigger, you have to change its width. You don't have to worry about its height because it's automatically going to deal with that. So you just have to change its width. So what you do is, up in the JavaScript code, first of all, down here you have a button. And if you press that button, you're going to jump up the function, whatever function you want to call it. Let's call the function, the first one we'll do is, we'll call it wide. And I'm not going to put anything in. I'm going to just assume that if you press that button, it's going to increase the width of this thing by 20 pixels. It's going to just automatically do it. Press the button, 20 pixels bigger. Press the button, 20 pixels bigger. So therefore, if you press the button that you have down here, whatever the button is, it comes up to here, and the first thing it does is it makes a variable. We'll call it W. Variable is going to be up here. W equals the same thing as it is down there. The width has to be the same thing, so that's 640. This is the old question of the global, see? You don't make variable there. What you want to do is you want to keep the variable up here, the same as down there. Anything going to change, you should keep a global variable with the same numbers in it as down there. So what you do is you say W, let's say plus equals 20, like that. And what that does is that'll add 20 to this. And all you have to do is get that 20 into that down there. Now here's where it gets tricky. There seems to be an inconsistency in the ways JavaScript has to deal with these things. I'm not sure why. It must be a technical problem behind the scenes that I don't know about. But basically, some things you would think that you could do this. You would think that you could say, my video dot style dot width equals W. You think you could do that, and I'm not even sure why you can't do it. It seems like in some situations you seem to be able to do it, in other situations you do not seem to be able to do it, and I'm not sure what the reason is, from browser to browser, or from versions of the browser. I'm not sure what it is. But this doesn't always work for some reason with videos, and it doesn't work with audio. For some peculiar reason, it doesn't seem to work with it. So what you can do, instead of writing it the way we're writing it here, you could write it in the formal way of writing this kind of thing. Instead of writing that line of code, which would change that, theoretically. If that doesn't work, here's the official line of the same code. You write document. Seems weird. It's like when we brought the audio in from our programs. You say get element with a capital E here.
By ID, right?
By capital B.
Capital I.
You know that now, actually. ID. And then you say my video, which is the name of the thing. Like so. Dot style. dot width equals W, like that. Which is pretty peculiar, isn't it? That's an awful lot of stuff right there. And my suspicion is that there's something in the documentation for these browser companies that they're supposed to, they can try to be consistent. And so they might be going to this and they might be going to that. I'm not sure which one's the old and which one's the new, but one of these two is going to prevail, and that's the only one people are going to use from now on. But I don't know which one it is. At this point, this one seems to be required in some situations. I do not know why. I can't explain it to you. And so, if this doesn't work for you, and the thing doesn't seem to do it, then just change to this approach right here, which is essentially the same thing. It's just a different way of writing it. Okay? That one right there is just like the one we used for the audio previously. We bring in audio the same way. Again, because audio is recalcitrant also. It doesn't do what it should do. But I agree with you. I think this right here is the easiest code to write. It's the one I think that they should go for, but there may be some reason why they can't do it. I don't know. You know, these things behind the scenes, when you're writing languages, you're interacting with two languages, and it gets weird. And so they probably get some constraints on them that we don't know about, because they're just, however this was made, they just have to deal with it. Okay, so that's all there is to that. And I just wanted to point that out, because if you have a video and you want to change its size dynamically for any reason, you could do it that way. You could press a button and do it. Or you can do anything. There's all kinds of ways of changing the size, but the button pressing is the only one we have so far. So that's it. Now I would like to introduce you to the webcam. Now the webcam is different than just the video because Google doesn't allow you to run somebody else's webcam from a program. They can't run your program from the web and have their webcam go on unless you have a secure socket layer. And you don't have that. If you ever get commercial, or you ever have to do this for wherever you're working, just use their SSL. They'll show you how to do it. Just use their SSL secure socket layer. Then you'll be able to write this kind of stuff directly and just use it. So here's what I suggest. It turns out that Firefox doesn't require you to use SSL. So any programs that you write with webcams can be run in Firefox. They'll run perfectly normally. It's just like, you know, so what you could do is, there's one of two things you could do. You could either, I put in the website, I put down the address, and if you just copy that address and go to Firefox and plug it into their browser, it'll come up with, the program will run. Okay, it won't run if you can't run it in our own Google. Another possibility is which I haven't set up, I guess, so I'm not any other possibility because I'd have to set it up. I haven't done that. Okay, so that's the way to do it. Just simply select the thing, plug it into Firefox, and then it will run for you. Here's what the essential webcam program looks like. It's a very simple program. It does require an include file. You have to put an include file in. It doesn't run without it. So here's what it looks like. That right there, miniwebcam.js will do the fire. And that's it. That contains all of the doodads necessary to get your webcam running. If you were to download this thing right here, miniwebcam.js, into your CS101 folder, and you ran your program, instead of giving it this address, you just gave it that address in the program. It would call the one in your CS101 folder, and it would work for you. As long as everything's in your own machine, it works fine. It's when you start using the web that it gets to be weird. It won't run from Alta Vista, but it will run in your machine. Because Google doesn't look at anything. It only looks at something if you try to download, or try to upload, or try to turn on a camera or something like that. Then it says,
So basically, like, this would run in your machine because it's like locally there, but you couldn't use it to turn on somebody else's webcam.
No, that's right. You'll run your own webcam but nobody else's. But if you run it in Firefox, it will run somebody else's. That's the only difference. You have the browser itself is what kicks it out. That's what hurts it. Okay, so then you got, after you put that in, that's all you need. You're done with it. /head, body, and then you have the video. You have to have a video still, because you're running a video, even though it's a webcam, it's a video. And you should tell it where to go and all that stuff. If you don't do these things, it'll just put it in the upper left-hand corner. Whatever. Give it 400. I'm just giving it something here. And that's it. Pretty easy, I guess. That's it. So basically, all you need is the thing that says I have a video. This is where I want it. Then you put that thing in, and it picks it up from there. It knows it's a webcam, so it deals with it. Okay. Takes care of it for you. Not too hard.
What does the absolute mean in position?
Absolute means if you, when you have a screen, you're taking it absolutely from here. Like supposing this is 100, 200 right here, this point right here. It says, I should have 200, 100 rather. Okay, so what it means is it's 200 absolutely from the left wall, and from the top it's absolutely 100 from there. That means it starts, the origin, in this case, happens to be this corner right here.
Okay.
One thing I was curious about, and I know it's come up before, and maybe I just never fully registered in my mind what it is, but the .js, like, what does that stand for, and what does that do?
You have files that have extensions on it. What that one says is that what's ever in this file is JavaScript. It's
okay.
JavaScript. And the reason why it's here, see, it's in the head. What happens is, see, it's JavaScript. So what happens is when it comes in, it's a program. It's part of your program now. You don't see it, but it's there.
And it's telling it to run in JavaScript.
Yeah, it tells it that this is a JavaScript, and it contains functions.
Like we've had .html. It's just a file extension because that's the format that it runs.
It's just an extension, right?
Okay, because I've seen it come up in our homework, like basic.js before.
Right, basic's the same thing.
But now that
if you list it, you'll see right away. It's just only JavaScript. That's all it's in.
Right.
Okay, does that answer your question? Is it okay? And that's it. Kind of simple, isn't it? Not really a lot to it. Okay, so that's how you. Don't forget, you can run this in Firefox. You cannot run it in Google unless you've got a secure socket layer. And you can run it locally in your machine. And possibly, you can't even do that. It won't actually, you couldn't put your program up on the web and run it. It won't run it. It will just refuse it. It just gets blocked up there.
Would it run like on your machine if you like dragged it into your browser without uploading to Alta Vista because it's locally there, or still no?
Drag what to your browser?
Like you write this out and you like drag it to your browser. Would it work on your machine? No. Okay, it wouldn't. Because it doesn't have
that's
the
still,
SSL.
That's still a down. That's still a down.
Okay.
Google can be stupid for nothing. That's stupid. I mean, their objective is to keep you from doing it, so they...
Privacy reasons and eavesdropping and spying on people.
Yeah, they make sure that you don't do it. Okay. So that's your basic webcam. The next thing I want to show you is, supposing you wanted to write in your program a way to, by video and audio, if you want to communicate with one of your friends. You want to make essentially a program that you can look at and talk to people and see them on the screen. You can do that. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's actually very simple. So what happens is they get on their machine and you both agree to a word. You call the program, I'm going to name this, give it some name. They call the program and they type in that word and you'll both be connected. You'll see them, they'll see you. Okay? This is called P2P, person to person, and it works with video. And it's not hard to do, but it has the same problem as the other one does, is that you can't use it in Chrome. It won't work in Chrome unless this program itself was on an SSL. I could set it up like that so you could use it, but you couldn't write one, see, so what's the point? So I didn't do that. What I said is, okay, what I'll do is I'll set it up, and I won't set it up as secure, and you guys can run it in Firefox, and you can see how it works, and you can call your friends, you can do anything you want. They can all use it, okay? So here's how it looks. Again, it has an include file, because it has to do some background work that you don't want to get into. HTML. This time you call a different include file. That's what it's called. That's it. It's called P2P code.js. That's the whole thing. There's one thing I want to mention to you. This is an oddity, and I don't know why it does either. I don't know why it works this way. If you wrote, in this case right here, if you wrote script, and you left all this thing out right here, you just wrote source, it works.
If you
It's one of those things where it's really not supposed to be optional. It's supposed to be there, but this is one of those things. You see, I say these computer geeks don't want to write stuff, so they cleverly work out what they don't have to write. But the first time you try to do something like that on your own, it'll flop what you want. So that's the thing that you need to get the person-to-person thing up and running. Then what I've done is I simply wrote a little program that allows you to type in the password, and then you call the program and say, okay, here's the password, go up and link us up. Whoever calls that password, put them on the screen. And the way it works for you is this. Here's your screen right here. It'll have a thing that'll say enter a password in this spot. You enter this password. As soon as you enter it, you come up, you become visible on the screen. Your camera starts to operate. And then what happens is when they type something in, one of you, I think it's them, gets to be big down here, and you're right here still. And if another person comes in, they get to be big over here. So in other words, it'll add up to 7 or 8 people. And then if you have a good connection, it'll go even further. But what happens is it starts to stall because of the number of people. Okay, when it connects with this guy right here, what it does is it goes up and it puts up the password. And then the other person puts up the password, goes up there. And then what happens is it links them directly. They are not linking like this, back and forth talking. So nobody's listening to the conversation. It's absolutely secure. It's only between the people who are connected. The only thing it does is that one thing, is it just links them together. That's it. And you've got to be careful of that, because if you went to there's other, there's various programs out there that do this kind of stuff. If you use somebody else's program, you've got to be careful that they're not eavesdropping on you, because you have no way of knowing that. Except for the fact that it runs a little bit slower, because if you have to upload to them and then download to the other guy, that delay in here is a little bit noticeable. And at that point, they could analyze something. Other than that, it goes pretty directly between. There's nothing like that. This thing right here contains no code that holds anything. It doesn't know what you're saying at all. It just knows password, link. It takes your 2 IP addresses and links them together, and that's all there is to it. You know anything else to do. Any question? Do you have a question? Who have a question? Anybody? I'm sure you can think of one. Go ahead.
Of course, I always do. For like the script type equals text slash JavaScript, I know you said that in this case, for whatever reason, that even can be omitted. But, like, I get that it's JavaScript in a lot of these cases, but the text slash JavaScript, like, what does that signify, especially in a case where you're not just coding something on a screen? Like, okay, we're going to embed this button that does something.
Text is visible code. It's stuff that you can see, ABC, dot, period, comma, everything, okay?
Right.
These other codes are not visible to you. They aren't text. They're something weird. And when they are weird, it won't see them. So in other words, if it's an odd character of some kind of ASCII character that's outside the range of what's visible, it will cause trouble. This right here says, this thing here, and that's a good thing to use, by the way, because if you make a typo and you create some weird character in your thing right here, when you're writing this stuff, there's a lot of stuff going on. You create a weird character and that says, I want to have text, and it sees that thing and says, that's not text, it'll blow it, it'll say, this doesn't work. That's because you mistyped something. It's kind of a double check for the author, not for anybody else. But that's the only thing it actually does for us. And the JavaScript part, if it sees JavaScript, it'll run it. It sees the JS, it will run it. But you can put JavaScript in other kind of files. And you can say, give me the JavaScript of that file. In other words, it'll go in and find the other stuff. But
so it will recognize the JavaScript for being JavaScript.
Right. So there's two ways. It's a double, everything's double checking. That's the best way to write programs. Have something, it's like our language. People don't realize, you never think about it. But when you say I am or you are, when you say it two different ways, who is saying it is locked not only in the subject, but in the verb as well. Either one of those, if you catch either one of those, you'll know whether it's you are or I am. You'll see it. It's a redundancy in language.
They work together.
And this right here is just a reflection of that kind of thinking where you try to, if you find any of the languages of seafaring people where there's a lot of noise in the ocean, their words and their sounds have a lot of explicit kind of sounds that override the waves and the wind. And they also are redundant. So that if somebody can say, raise the mainsail or whatever it is, you'll find that those words are locked together so that if they miss one of the words, the other ones will tell them what they were trying to say.
The connotation is obvious. You mean...
Yeah. And that's the way nature has worked out our languages, so we worked it out because of nature. So that right there is an example of intended redundancy. Okay, so here we go. First thing I want to do is I'm going to have an input. I'm going to have an input button because what you have to do is you have to type something in, have an input area, then you have to have a button to press to make it do what it's supposed to do.
And when you say type something in, would this be like, okay, enter your conference ID passcode? Is that how that would work?
Duh. Exactly.
Right.
All it does is sets up the area for them to type into. And now you've got this, and this is the thing you're going to send up to this guy up here and tell him, whoever connects to that code, bring them in. We want to talk to them. And so you say input, type, equals button. By the way, you can see what's going on here. They actually take over control of where these images are going to go. They've got to go someplace. So if you're going to design your page around this, you can do that if you want. You can put the stuff wherever you want to put it. But remember that wherever you put it, these pictures, the incoming person could go right over it because it needs space to put those images someplace. So if you, for example, here's what I would suggest you do. If you're going to do this kind of stuff, either write all of your stuff down below here. In other words, put it all down at like 600, 700, 800 or something like that from the top, and start writing down here. So that way the things will be above the code, the stuff you want them to see, or below it. You can do it either way you want, but you have to fit it in there because those images will just push everything aside when they come in. There's no other way for it to do it. It has to get your images in somewhere. So connect. On click, tools. We're going to send startup code. Oh, yeah. Dot value. So what I've done so far is I've set up the area where you type the stuff in, and the button says click, send that information I just typed in up to here. And now all I got to do is put the video in. It's got to have a place for the video. So I say video. This is the initial one, okay? This is the one that will go on for you. This is yours, the one that says come from your webcam onto your screen. You can set this up any size you want. Whoops, 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 whoops. Yeah, they do it directly. They don't bother putting it in a, you could put it in style if you want, but they don't. They just put it out there. This is traditional. Normal, we didn't used to have style, so basically they did this. That's a height with a T. You can put it in style sheet if you want to. ID equals local video. This is essential. That name is essentially that. Local video has to be the name, because that's what it sends up and that's what it knows. Knows this thing over here knows local video, knows that. Slash video. You hear that? And finally, that's your local video. And now it has to have a place for the other videos when they come in. When they're communicating with you, they have a place for that, their images to go to. So here's what you have here. You set up a div, give it an ID of something, remote. Videos. It's got to be exactly this name. Video, sorry. Video, oh, it's S. This is kind of funny. That's a capital V right there. Notice that S. It shows you that whoever wrote this original thing was not an American. It was somebody just, they didn't know how to pluralize it, so they put plural in there. But it's probably, I think it's I believe it's somebody from India. They look like Indians when they're writing. Then you say /div, like so. And that's it. /body, /HTML. Pretty simple. This would be your picture, and this would be theirs right there. It automatically drops down a notch after this one and goes into here. And that'll do it. That'll all work. It should work out fine for you. Be sure to run it on Firefox rather than. So let me just go through it again. What there is here. That's an include file. There's nothing else. There's no other JavaScript up there. And what you do is you have a little box where they type into. And then you have a button when they press on it. You send the information from that box, code.value, up to startup, which is the program up in there that starts up the arrangement. And then what happens is you have a place for your video to appear on the screen. You can probably move that around. You can probably put left and top. You can do all that stuff. You can move in different positions. But always be careful, because what you have to worry about is what do they do with this? Where do they put their guys? And that's, you don't have any control over it. See, that's the one that we don't have any control over. We probably could get control over that, but it would be a big bunch of arithmetic, futzing around and figuring out, oh, that's this one's, 600 pixel wide, so I've got to go 600 plus that, and so forth. Which reminds me, when you say position absolute, there's also something called position relative. That's another possibility. And position relative says, for example, you could have, if you have position absolute 500, it would be 500 on the left side. Position relative is 500 from the last thing that you put on the screen, which is slightly different. But that's handy too for some things, but we don't use it for much. But it is a handy thing. And there it is. That's the program. Okay. So So that one will allow you to connect up. You can have your own Skype.
Now, if we download your codes from your website, can we just run this even if you delete yours?
You can, I don't ever delete anything, unless something really goes wrong, it should be there forever.
Okay.
You mean this one right here?
Yeah.
I would if I were you. I always advise everybody to download these things, because they have two things in it. They have the code that I wrote, which is a bunch of little code, and then they have the contact to the. See, someone up there in the universe has to be able to link you together, and the people that wrote this thing provide you with that space. It'll take a second with their computer to say, okay, give this one to that one. They don't like to do it, but they wrote the program and they're stuck with it. So as long as India, if you find somebody who, if you showed the code to somebody who's a JavaScript author, if it didn't work anymore, you just show it to them. They'll know what happened to the India guys, and they'll find another site that does the same thing. They can give you another address. It's workable. You can get around that stuff.
Say you set up a website like this, and you want people to be able to log in to watch what you're doing. Say you're hunting or something, and you want to go live. How do you protect your code so that somebody who's an anti-hunter doesn't come in and try to destroy it? I mean, is there ways to put a protection on your code so people can't see it? Or can anybody just go on and click view page source?
No, they have to have your password.
Okay.
You have to give them a password. See, this right here, which you type in, as the thing starts up, it looks like this. Like here. It's got a button here, and has something to type in here. You have to type in a password there, hit that button. And only if the other person types in that same password, they can't connect you otherwise.
Okay.
It's got to be exactly the same. Yeah.
One thing I'm curious about, though, if I'm not sure, like, I get the idea of, like, with something like any kind of conferencing ID, is like, okay, put in your conference ID or whatever so you get the right one. But what about in the case of, say, something like Facebook, where someone is, like, live streaming, like he described what they're doing, and it is kind of more public? How does that work?
Facebook
Or is that just because
it's the most dangerous program that was ever written.
Oh,
I don't go near it with a 10-foot. I have no idea how it works. I don't want to go near it. It's very deadly.
But it would be something different in that case.
I don't know how it's. I don't know. All I know is that guy is a jerk. That's all I'm sure of.
I'm guilty of using Facebook.
Did you see his little performance down there in the island after the hurricane?
No.
He goes down there virtually as a cartoon character,
oh,
and he's showing off his stuff. Well, everybody in the world is watching him show off his stuff in front of this devastation, just to show off his, this guy's out of it. And anybody that thinks like that, you don't want to give them any information. And unfortunately, if you look at it, they pry it. They keep prying it out of you. I mean, it's just amazing how much information. You put the Google hits together with what he does and whatever the sites you go to, and pretty soon they know
your
everything
whole
about
life.
you. There's nothing that they don't have. They know everything about you. I mean, the government's not the danger. It's
Facebook and Twitter and Google.
Anyway, so yeah, Facebook is a deadly program. I don't know how you use it. I just know how not to go near it. But anyway, that program, this one here works. And as I say, all these programs, none of these programs collect information. None of it collects information. It's just, they're your own programs, so they don't collect anything. There's nothing there. The Indian guys would have trouble collecting your information anyway, because they would know that there's one of you, or two of you, or 50 of you. The last program I want to do here is kind of like, there's always things that you can do that make things more fun, naturally. And one of the things that came up a while ago, I'm going to leave this here for a second, is this kind of thing. Like you have a video camera and you put this guy on the screen. The first thing you do is you put a mustache on him or something. We can do that. We can put ears on him, mustaches, hats, whatever you want. Whatever drawing you can pull from the internet, you can put it on. What you do is you go to the net and you find out something like a clown face or something like that. And then what you do is you bring it into exit view, and you make everything transparent except like the eyebrows and the red nose. And that is a picture. You got that picture now. Remember, it's mostly transparent except the stuff you want to plaster on the face. Okay? So then we do is, I've amalgamated all these programs so that I can put, you know, you have various things that are kind of locked together now. I'll get the chrome face here. And it goes like this. Sorry. This thing here, to do this, to plaster stuff on, it's called webcam face.js. Webcamface.js is the one. Okay, that's the include that you put in the program here. You're going to start doing this stuff. Okay, the first thing is, when the screen comes up, you have the person in position right here. But what this program does is, it puts a rectangle around the face. It finds their face. It automatically finds their face, just like a camera does. And now you get their face. And now if you replace that rectangles around their face with a picture with a nose on it and something else, it's got transparency, you'll be able to see their face will now have a clown face on it, or whatever you do, mustache or glasses or whatever you want to do. So that's all this does. This just allows you to capture their face and put something on their face, okay? And so what you put on their face is whatever image you want to put on it, whatever that happens to be. And here's how you do it. It's got some things in it that are a little bit, we've got to work out a little bit, but I'll talk to you about it. Script language. JavaScript. Nothing new there. Then, I'm going to write these down. Wait a second. This should be okay. Yes. Don't put VAR in front of this. The reason why is because this program's already done that. We're just giving it a value. Even though it's already got a value, we want to give it a new hour value or a new value. I'll tell you what these numbers are in a second. You can tell, you sort of see by the names what they are. This left and top right here are not the left and top that we use, not just left and top. This is box left and box top. The thing is that when it first puts the rectangle down, it plops into a position centered exactly on the center of his face. That's how they do it. But sometimes you may want to bring all the object, that's also where your object is. If you want to bring your object down a little bit, you want to give him a beard, you want to have a beard down here. See, it's outside the range. So you can bring the face down if you want to, by simply changing top, bringing it down a little bit. So in other words, what this does, top and left allow you to move the face, move the rectangle this way or that way, or top up and down. The width tells you how big it is, of course, and how high it is. Because if you want to put big ears on something, you've got to have a picture that's big enough to put the ears on it and so forth. So those guys right there just control that little rectangle that's in front of his face. And that rectangle contains your picture, whatever it is. Okay? I would strongly advise you to have your picture X by X, the same size on both. That's much easier to do. If you make it taller, then you have to diddle with these to get it in the right position. Now, there's a nice little thing about this program, which is you might not expect. If you would think, well, when you move this way, the thing moves this way with you, and move that way with it. But it does even something better. When you move close, it makes it bigger. So as the face gets bigger along with your face, so everything works according to depth and according to left and right and up and down. So the thing is, as long as that's got a capture of your face as you move around on the screen, it will put the thing in the right proportion in the right place. As long as you set this up to do the job. Now I have to tell you something. If you're on a very slow machine or a bad connection, internet connection, it takes a little while to do calculations. And sometimes it'll jump or something. It'll do some weird thing because it isn't a perfect program. It's kind of like, it's a playing around program, so it isn't perfect. So you do have a little bit of trouble with that, but not very much, just a little bit. Okay, that's the end of that. So it's /script. slash head. And then you have the body down here. And you're going to put your video in. It wants the word video. You got to use these words, and you got to use that word there. Then you have to have the image. Mask or something like that. Give it any name you want. Whatever you want to call your image. No, you can't give it any. Artists, I take that back. Do not do that. What I did is when I stole the program and rigged it up, I made sure that I didn't have to do a lot of work in it. So I used their word, which is glasses right here. That's their word. You got to use that word. Because it originally just had a pair of glasses on. That's all it had. So you put a pair of glasses on the thing. And but we're not using glasses. Our picture isn't glasses. Our picture is something else. So you say the source, whatever your source is, equals. I'm going to put clown. This is the one I use, clown.ping. And style equals position absolute. Now, let me explain this to you here about this image thing. What happens is when you create an image and you make its opacity 0, it's invisible. Okay, so basically what they do is they don't put the image in the picture right away. What they do is, like, here's the picture, here's the screen, well, here's the screen right here, and here's the picture. When you bring your glasses in, they come in like right here. Your picture comes in right here, but you don't want it to be seen right there. So immediately they make it invisible, so it's not seen, it disappears. And then in their program, they move that picture to where it's supposed to be. But it has to exist someplace, and then they turn it on. They make opacity 1, they turn it on for you. So basically all you have to do is say, if you didn't put opacity 0 there, your glasses would appear here, and it'd also appear over here, or whatever, it appeared in a couple of places. So you wouldn't have control over where everything was. Using this system, you do have control over everything. The only thing you don't have control over is this stuff right here. It has to be done correctly so that it knows how to calculate where all the parts are and how big they are. And when you move the head left, see, it isn't the head in here inside the picture. The head can move around inside the picture, so it has to move the junk, the stuff that you put it with. It's got to go with it. So it's a little bit of calculation going on in there. Slash body slash HTML. That's it. That's all there is to it. You can do quite a few things with this. I just picked these things because they're kind of tools and they're kind of handy. So basically now we have 3 things. You can get a video and play it. You can take your webcam, you can play it, you can communicate by webcam, and you can add doodads to the pictures from the webcam. That's all that there is to it. By the way, this would also add pictures to a video too. Suppose you have a picture of your friend playing in the yard or something like that. Perfectly fine. It could find his face and it could put a mustache on him even while he's playing in the yard. So you see, it doesn't care if it's coming from a webcam
face
or not.
recognition, like...
Yeah, like you could have a movie that's already there of him, and then when it sees his face, it'll find it and it'll add the mustache to it. So whatever he's doing, he will now have a mustache, or whatever. I mean, you can see that you can play games with the thing. Because all you do is you just create a video, and the video, as long as it's called video, it doesn't care that it comes in from a different source. It doesn't care about that. It's not interested in that. So in other words, if you change the source of it, it will still accept it, whatever it is. That's it. That's all there is to it.